Good evening. The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Finance Organization Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and Channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you just enter the meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes to speak has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. A reminder that the minute taker is participating remotely, so please make sure your microphones are on so she can take an accurate account of our meetings. With that, we have a fairly lengthy agenda with a lot of good stuff on it. But first item is Captain Tenney.
Good evening. How are you? Steve Tenney, I'm the captain with the police department. Only one item for you tonight, and that's this year's money from the Edward Byrne Department of Justice JAG grant. This money, or this grant, we file, or we co-apply with the Cheshire County. They're the fiscal agent, and we enter into a memorandum of agreement with them for our portion of the money. This year, our portion would be $5,525. We've participated in this grant for several years. It helps us pay for our cell phones for our field operations, mainly in our cruisers, but also I think we have one in investigations and one with our SRO.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? Go ahead.
Thank you. What's the total value of the grant? Is the grant for only the 5525, or does the county take a share of it as well?
Yes, so I have that here. The county takes a matching share of it, so the total grant amount between Cheshire County and the City of Keene is $12,155. So we get our $5,525. The county gets the same amount to be used for direct expenses, and the balance of that, which is $1,105, is used for indirect expenses for the grant.
Thank you. Members of the public? Motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to co-apply with the County of Cheshire and to accept and expend the U.S. Department of Justice FY23 JAG in the amount of allocated to the city $5,525.
And I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Mr. Bohannon.
Good evening. Andy Bohannon, Parks Recreation Facilities Director for the City of Keene. 3 items before you tonight, and the first one is an acceptance of a donation for $40,000 from the Keene Dog Park. This is the start of their fundraising efforts. They've been working very diligently to work with various contractors around the area to learn different pricing. We gave them like a scope of work related to the DuBois and King study. They took that and then it went out, and I think before you previously there was a figure of about $125,000. Various contractors have been able to work with them, give them some donated services, And in addition to that, they've removed the pavilion out of the scope of work because of the amount of trees that are out in the park. They felt like the shade was adequate, and that might be something that they do down the road. And so by doing that, that takes quite a bit of the chunk of the money off of the table. Quite a few contractors related to the fencing gave them some favorable numbers. So when we do go out to bid, that'll be some language that we'll have to work out related to that. But this donation starts that bidding process for the city. So we get a contractor lined up, and they can begin to start work probably in the early fall timeframe. So that's before, and to, just as to note, we do have Rebecca Lancaster in the audience tonight, who kind of spearheaded this second effort for the dog park. Would just like to recognize her and thank her, and she's welcome to come to the table if you would, just to kind of give an overview and tell people where they can still donate to the project.
Is it okay to stand up here? Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for taking the time. Yeah, we're just really grateful to have such a supportive council and community. It has not been easy, to say the least, but we have a great team. I have to give a personal shout out to Paige Walker and Susan Newcomer, who have really spearheaded the fundraising efforts. In the past 9 months or so, we just have so far, from community and personal donations and the corporate, our corporate members in the area, we're close to $89,000 right now, between in-kind donations and again, personal donations, and then just a couple of thousand of that is pledged that we still have yet to receive. So I think we're in a really healthy spot moving forward, to realize a really well put together and well thought through park, hopefully come this fall, because I've got a lot of puppies that like to be out there before the snow flies. So, yeah. Questions?
Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Members of the public? Seeing none, a motion.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept a donation of $40,000 for the purpose of building a dog park in Wheelock Park.
Excitedly second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to acknowledge the hard work and commitment that that group has shown to gather the funds and make this happen. It's commendable.
Thank you.
I'll just second Councilor Chadbourne's statement. I mean, $89,000, both in cash and in kind donations, that's not easy. Especially in a community, even though Keene is very giving, there's oftentimes donor fatigue. So raising that sort of money is no small feat, and I certainly congratulate you, and frankly, I thank you for all the hard work you've put in towards this project, and I look forward to taking Cooper there in the fall.
Thank you. If I may, real quick, Mr. Chair. So the website, if anyone wants to check it out, is keendogpark.org, and we also have a really active Facebook page where you could check out the the donors and stuff in town and shout outs to them. So I would direct anyone who's interested in just seeing the progress or donating to either the website keendogpark.org or our Facebook page.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you.
Andy has more good news.
More good news. So tonight is the opportunity for the city to accept a grant of $1,250 for the Brian A. Mattson Recreation Center project through the CDFA Community Center Investment Program. If you recall, back in April, I brought this forward through the grant application process, so the city manager could sign for the application. We were able to be lucky enough to receive those funds, and so this is a great win for us. We've already begun part of the process as far as getting the level 2 survey done. This is going to focus on the HVAC system at the recreation center, specifically in the multipurpose room and in the offices, improve the lobby. It will create an ADA ramp from the parking lot above down to the War Memorial. That was specific part of this project, because if you've ever been up there for Veterans Day or Memorial Day, there are many veterans who are not able to visit their comrades down below, and it just breaks my heart. So that's going to be getting done, and all the windows within the building will also be replaced. So I probably won't have to wear as many layers in the wintertime in my office. So, but this is for, as I mentioned before, $801,250.
Thank you. Comments, members of the committee? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's listed as a forgivable loan. I'm curious what the conditions for forgiveness would be for.
It's 0%. So instead of having a grant, and the grant ties in a lot more reporting and situations, the loan does not. So the CDFA recommends for us to go forward with the loan, as opposed to a grant, which has essentially ties to a lot more work down the road for the city. And Assistant City Manager Beth might be able to help on that front.
I just assume there's some conditions for forgiveness to make it, because it's forgivable, to make it a grant-like. I imagine there's some kind of condition for forgiveness.
Thank you.
The condition of forgiveness are a pretty low threshold. You know, the city has to own the building and do the work. You know, Andy is correct that if the CDFA was to handle this through their customary grant process, it would bind the city to innumerable grant conditions into perpetuity. And because this is a brand-new, probably short-term program for CDFA, they were really very interested in not doing those sorts of leverages for this program. And I really do want to make sure that the committee and the council is aware that this was a very unique funding opportunity, had a very short timeline. Andy had to work very hard and was successful, while 8 or 9 other applications were not. There were 18 applications in total, and many were not successful in being funded, and some weren't funded because they weren't attentive to the threshold requirements that Andy clearly articulated in his application the city was going to meet. The other thing that the city positioned the city well to compete for this grant has been its asset management focus, because we had information available, and our capital improvement planning process, because we had looked at this building and looked at projects. And if we had not done that work, and Andy hadn't been really on the ball to respond quickly and able to respond quickly, we never would have been successful. So really does get a extra shout out.
And I would credit a lot to Scott Martin, our facilities manager, as well. He was definitely on the ball related to all of the, I was able to do a lot of the writing, and he was able to provide me with all of the needs for the asset management piece.
Other members of the committee? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
This one's me. Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to accept, execute, and expend a Community Development Finance Authority grant award for $801,250 for the Brian A. Mattson Recreation Center project.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Nice job, Andy.
Thank you.
Next one?
So the next one is an Invest New Hampshire Municipal Demolition Grant for an award of $130,000 for the property located at 160 Water Street, which would be known as Findings. This, as you recall, was a property that the city acquired last September, and we went forward to move the skate park to this particular location. The building footprint is where basically the parking lot will be, and the existing parking lot will be where the skate park is. What this grant enables for the skate park is some additional square footage that we would be able to use from the Land, Water, and Conservation Fund. That application is in the federal process right now and looking very favorable. So there is, that will be coming later in October. But as of right now, this helps that process. It was kind of like we had to wait for this to enable to expand the footprint of the skate park just slightly. So this is a big win for the city of Keene.
Thank you. Members of the committee, comments, questions? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, a motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to accept, execute, and expend and invest New Hampshire Municipal Demolition Grant Award for $130,000 for the property located at 160 Water Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none. All in favor? No one opposed? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watterson, you gonna bring us money?
It's a tough act to follow. Kevin Watterson, resident of 10 Westview Avenue, Keene, New Hampshire. Before I begin, as a 50-year-plus resident of Keene and a former close friend of Brian Mattson, and on behalf of the citizens of Keene, I do want to thank Andy for his efforts above and beyond. Nice job. I'm here tonight relative to Independence Eve, the city's annual fireworks display. As many or most know, the weather conditions on July 3rd were such that the Swamp Bats chose to postpone the event. It was all based on safety. We were following radar, and it just looked like putting 3,000 to 5,000 of our fans and our citizens on the alumni field just wasn't the safest way to go. So we chose to postpone, made the decision fairly early, about 8:30 a.m., able to get to both fire and police, and certainly appreciate their flexibility in contacting their teams in order to shut it down. So I'm here tonight requesting the community funding that you have previously approved be instituted for our makeup date of Friday, July 28th. That is that's the makeup date, and the event will take place that night, rain or shine.
Thank you. Questions, members of the committee? You've been on TV, you're gonna be on again.
Sure. Good evening, Corporal Lundquist, Public Works Director, Emergency Management Director. Yeah, I'm just here to answer questions, as Kevin indicated. They are just requesting to have the community events funding that had been budgeted for the 4th of July Eve program to now be utilized at the July 29th incident event, or 28th.
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 Yep.
So,
Questions? None? Anybody else in the public? Questions? Motion, please.
Move to recommend the communication submitted by the Keene Swamp Bats on June 15th, 2023, requesting additional fireworks discharge in July be reported out as informational. The Keene Swamp Bats are further authorized to reschedule their Independence Eve community-funded event to occur on Friday, July 28th on Alumni Field, subject to the same conditions as the previous authorization. The petitioner agrees to absorb the cost of any city services over and above any amount of city funding allocated in the FY24 community events budget for the display. Said payment shall be made within 30 days of the date of invoicing.
and I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none. All in favor? No one's opposed. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
I understand the next item is going to be put on more time.
I understand that from Pam Slack's comments last night, and I did try and confirm with the city clerk's office, but I'm pretty sure that she was pretty clear that she would not be here and would request that it be placed on the next FOP agenda.
Okay, somebody make that motion.
Move to recommend that the request from Pamela Russell Slack in regards to an amendment to the City Council's Rules of Order regarding workshops be placed on more time.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Who's opposed? Unanimous. Next item, Counselor Filio.
Good evening again. Randy Filio, Keene City Council. My letter's pretty much to the point. I'm requesting the reimbursement of the $2,500 that city taxpayers' money was spent on the Jeff Speck visit. And I think although maybe the intent was fine, the end result was, because he was doing book sales, it turned into a for-profit event. I feel any tax dollars used for a for-profit event is unconscionable. Even if you look at when we do outside agencies or outside promotions, or you have to go through a process. In this particular case, a majority of the council, agreed that they would spend up to $5,000, and it came to $2,500. But once again, it turned into a for-profit event. Now, there could be an excuse of, well, he didn't make that much, or we didn't know it was going to be a for-profit event, and those are excuses. Those are both completely irrelevant. The bottom line is tax dollars were used for a for-profit event, and I find that unconscionable, and I think the council should request reimbursement of those funds. I mean, realistically, do we get them? Don't know. It's going to be hard to enforce. I get that. But the bottom line is, as the stewards of our taxpayers' dollars, we should be asking for the reimbursement. And that's all I'm asking for here. One further note I did see in the background notes, there's probably some intent that you just wanted to accept it as informational. I respectfully request you do not do that. I respectfully request that you take this to a vote, because I think the elected officials of Keene should be asking for taxpayers' dollars back when it is not used exactly how it should have been. Being this was a for-profit event, this was not how it was used as it should have been. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, as a group, I believe, agreed to bring in a speaker who, by nature, is not a nonprofit. He is a person who runs a business, and this is what he does for a living. So I don't understand where there was any perception that he was doing this out of the kindness of his heart. I think this was always, he was making money for coming. And to be clear, the books that were being sold in the lobby were being sold by Toadstool Bookstore, not by him. So I'm confused by the request.
Well, there's no need to be confused, because the wording I got, the profits went to him. And unless somebody can prove otherwise, I stand by that. And once again, I just think this money is spent. If somebody wants to speak, but once it becomes a book sign event, that's something totally different than what was interpreted or anticipated.
I bought one of the books at the event, and I had to pay Toadstool for it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not totally unsympathetic to Councilor Filio's point. I do find issue with public dollars being used for private profit. But that being said, we made in effect a deal. We voted a certain way at the council. We did not include a stipulation about books shall not be sold at this event. If we had done that, then I think we could, realistically or ethically ask for the $2,500 back. But we did not include that as a stipulation. So it's kind of shame on us for not including that. I know that we're in Cheshire County, but we're the city of Keene, and we negotiate in good faith. We don't go back on deals. We don't negotiate in bad faith with other people. So, I get Councilor Filio's point. I agree with him to an extent, but the city made a deal. We didn't include that. That's shame on us, and that's something we need to think about for the future.
Go ahead.
As you know, I voted against this, but the majority of the council vote prevails, and I understand where you're coming from, but I agree with Counselor Madison.
Any members of the public speak to this? Okay. Looking for a motion.
Sure, I'd move to recommend to accept as informational.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. From the airport.
Good evening, everyone. Dave Hickling, Airport Director. As I've mentioned to this committee in the past, we still have a lot of interest for hangar development with a hangar shortage at the airport. And we've had people come in the past that have showed interest. We've started making discussions about it. Sometimes those questions about developing there kind of lead into talking about lease terms, which then I feel like I'm negotiating leases. So at that point, I would come to City Council to get approval, get authorization for the city manager to negotiate and execute a lease. None of those came to fruition because we just really didn't have enough time to vet people that weren't going to follow through with it. So what we're looking to do here is to get this committee's recommendation to authorize the city manager to negotiate land leases. If we get through those negotiation process or get to a point where we feel we've got a really good chance of executing a lease, then we'll come back to City Council to get approval to execute that lease. But that'll avoid us bringing multiple proposals, I guess, to get authorization to negotiate when a lot of them might not follow through.
Thank you. Questions, comments, members of the committee? Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, just a quick question for just the city attorney. If, given the motion that's in front of us here, would this be binding just going forward, or would there be some timeline for which she would have the power, the city manager would have this power?
It's fairly open-ended, but keep in mind that the city council can change that anytime that it wants. So if you adopt the proposal, then that would allow the city manager, as Dave says, to explore options. But if some point you would like to not do that, the city council can certainly do that. And we were very careful on the question of execute. As you know, there are statutes associated with executing leases for years and that sort of thing. But quite frankly, they did run it by me, and I have to say it made sense to me. I've been involved in some of those prior negotiations too, and you know it does take some time to do that. And we thought that this was a way to sort of make it more efficient, while still giving the city council the absolute authority to decide whether or not to enter into the lease.
Further discussion? Motion, please.
Move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager, excuse me, to do all things necessary to negotiate Keene Airport land leases with potential hangar developers consistent with the airport land leasing policy.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did everybody see court on TV tonight?
4:45. And you are.
Oh, wow.
The face of Keene.
Isn't that a scary thought?
Yes.
Good evening, Corp. Blomquist, Public Works Director, Emergency Management Director. And as with normal with Public Works, I'm here to spend money. No. Andy brings money in, I spend it. This evening, we have a request for a change order for the Wells Street parking facility repair work that's going on. That project is to remove the existing membrane on the second deck, repair concrete areas, and then place a new membrane back down on the deck to last another 10 years. It's maintenance, and there is life to these things. During the design process, as our design engineer and staff was looking at particularly the joint sealants, if you're not aware, our structure, the parking, Wall Street parking facility it's a precast T structure, meaning that the members are in a T shape and they were precast solid piece and they butt up against each other to create the deck surface. In between the T's, there's sealant material that minimizes water dripping down between the T's. Of course, water, particularly salt water, as a result of winter maintenance, doesn't do well on concrete. Neither does it make the people who are parking underneath real happy. So, as they began removing the current deck surface, the sealant membrane was in poorer condition than we originally saw from underneath. So our design engineer is recommending, and we're concurring, that we should go forward and basically replace the sealant on the deck. That is a change order for $44,550. Currently, the project budget for this is $678,800. For the project, we have spent to date $419,814, which includes the original design, construction inspection, and now the current construction contract. After this change order, we'll have about $258,000 left in the project. We're not expecting any more substantial issues because we are now into the deck removal. We're through the concrete repairs and we're into the membrane removal. So I'll just be replacing this and then putting a new membrane back.
Questions? Go ahead.
So how long, you don't anticipate more repairs? Like, how long do we think that this would last?
10 years.
10 years? Okay. Because it feels like this particular parking lot comes to us a lot.
Believe it or not, it
Or
was
parking
just over
lot.
8 years ago when we did the last major rehab on it. So, I mean, again, unfortunately, we're in New England. These are, the membrane is basically a material that does wear out. I mean, that's the purpose, to protect, again, the concrete and minimize damage to that. So it's sort of like paint. You have to paint your house. If you don't paint your house, you develop wood rot. Same concept here. If we don't periodically replace the membrane and the joints, then we'll start seeing more substantial work down the line. And Councilor Powers probably remembers when I had to take off 3 inches of concrete off the City Hall garage because that had gone on for an extended period of time, and we saw some substantial failure in the concrete.
Further discussion? Motion, please.
I think it's me. Yeah. Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute change order number 1 with Pierce Property Services to add T-joint sealant replacement to the Wells Street parking structure repair project for an amount not to exceed $44,550 with a revised contract total of $431,514.
And I second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? No one's opposed.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 10.
Shoot, I wanted to catch it.
Good evening, Don Farquhar, Fire Chief. I'll be bringing money in. Presenting to you tonight a potential agreement or requested agreement to enter an ambulance service contract with the town of Sullivan. So as some brief background information, as you know, as the city councilors, you've been kept apprised of all things ambulance over the past few months. It's been very dynamic and challenging. The city's position from the onset was to be supportive to the overall countywide effort to stabilize EMS. So our position was not to offer contracts, was to use our position as a well-established and well-respected EMS agency in the community to try and bring everyone together into a cooperative model versus one of competition. We came very close to having, we actually had an agreement in place, which unfortunately didn't come to fruition. So in sort of the aftermath of not being able to finalize the cooperative model, each municipality kind of went with, or was going with, the EMS agency of their choice. As a significant compliment to the City of Keene Fire Department, many towns reached out to us and asked for us to enter an EMS agreement with them. In almost all cases, or actually with the exception of one, in looking at our current resources and our ability to provide for our own citizens in current contract towns, we're in a very difficult spot to absorb any additional call volume. So unfortunately, and it's difficult professionally and emotionally to say no, we're unable to offer those towns contracts. The town of Sullivan presents somewhat unique outlier to the overall landscape, and after some analysis, we feel it's at worst cost neutral for us to enter a agreement with the town of Sullivan. So historically, as far as call volume and standby fees, when we had the town of Westmoreland, which has a population of about 1,700 people, the town of Westmoreland, which, as you know, we no longer contract with, we spent about 90 to 100 times a year there annually. They had a standby fee of about $54,000, and in EMS revenue, we got back like around 100,000 or so. So we're no longer under contract with them. So we have a narrow sliver of capacity to help out, and Sullivan has the additional benefit of being closer, which benefits us both for response time and also a much more timely return to service times. So in other words, from dispatch to treating the patient to driving off to the hospital, it's a shorter circle, so we can cover our resources a little more quickly. So again, after some analysis, I think it becomes a good thing for both us and the town of Sullivan. As a quick aside, their town council sent us a letter of proposal, which I deeply appreciated. They did an in-depth analysis of all things. It was an excellent proposal and successful, I believe. So I was deeply appreciative of them reaching out to us and building their own case very adeptly. So in Sullivan, if their population's a little short of 700 and their call volume annually is about 58, so if we use our standard per capita fee, their annual standby fee for us would be around $24,000, and maybe 60 or so in fee recovery from EMS billing. So the proposal in front of the FOP this evening is for us to extend an EMS service contract to the good citizens of the town of Sullivan.
Questions? This is a town that we had prior.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's nobody else to talk about it, so need a motion.
Move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to all things necessary to execute an agreement for contract ambulance service with the town of Sullivan.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? See, yes, sir.
I just want to thank you, Chief, for your department's service over the last few days. I know you guys had a swift water rescue. Where was that? Alstead?
Yes, yep.
I've done swift water rescue before, and it is not easy. It's very dangerous work. So I want to commend all the work your department has done with the floods over the last few days.
Deeply appreciate that. And it looks like we have some more bad weather coming over the weekend as well, so, or not.
Yeah, I'm not on call, thankfully.
Okay, thanks. All in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Spot on.